Lord of Darkness, Part 1, The End of the World, Chapter 1, The Beginning of the End. The world is ending. You have until 3020 AD to get your affairs in order. But don't worry, this is actually a good thing. It means humanity has advanced to the point that you're ready to join our society. We like to leave an extra millennium at the end of a world for tying up loose ends, tearing things down, etc. During this time, the Archangel of Penance, or as you've dubbed him, the Devil, will be in charge of your world, as is traditional. One of his first acts was to ask me to be forthcoming with you about your impending doom and set the record straight on a few key points, as is entirely untraditional. You are now reading the results of this request, translated into a language and vernacular suited for your time. On the morning that we planned to start Earth's apocalypse, 5 of Earth's archangels were seated around a conference table in the often empty beige void we used for meetings. Heaven is full of rooms, enclosed variably sized spaces that can be filled with whatever you want. There are countless public rooms, and everyone has their own private room to do with as they please. The void rooms are ones that reset themselves when all the inhabitants leave, so they always start off empty. At the head of the table was our leader, Archangel Raphael of Healing and Patience, who was a picture-perfect angel, aside from the absent wings and halo. His skin, hair, and eyes were all dark golden, and he dressed in the traditional angelic vestments you humans often depict us in. He was our team leader, and probably the most even-tempered celestial, people who live in heaven and hells, that I've ever met. Like most of Earth's archangels, he's a seraph. Seraphim are the first people God created. We all began life simultaneously, suddenly existent, fully adult, fully aware of our purpose in life, and full of the desire to help others. Of course, in a perfect universe, who is there to help? I'm not saying God created your universe because we were bored. Michael, Archangel of Security and Kindness, sat to Raphael's right. Michael was tall, buff, light-skinned, and blue-eyed with chin-length blonde hair. His famous flaming sword was sheathed at his side. His sheath and shield were in pocket dimensions, conveniently placed on his person, which is the only sensible way to carry unwieldy objects. Per usual, Michael was decked out in a full suit of obsidian armor. Obsidian is a golden-colored metal alloy, made largely of elements you haven't discovered yet. It's lightweight with properties similar to a non-Newtonian fluid. While in gentle motion, it moves fluidly with the wearer like silk, but when faced with a sudden impact, it solidifies into a material harder than diamond. I sat to Michael's left. My name is Gabriel, Archangel of Communication and Temperance. I was wearing black slacks with golden trim and a flowy white blouse. I've never been able to decide on my hair, so I change it nearly every day. The day before, it was short, curly, and bright green, but that day it was straight, shoulder length, and jet black with blue tips. My skin changes its shade and tone to best accent my hair. Maybe it's self-indulgent for an Archangel of Temperance, but it's important for an Archangel of Communication to express herself. I'm a woman, by the way. Don't let it distract you. To Raphael's left sat Uriel, Archangel of Repentance and Forgiveness. He was a cherub and the only non-seraph on our team. Most archangels and archdemons are seraphim, since other celestials are reluctant to spend more than a few decamillennium guiding a chosen people to maturity. Cherubim hailed from the planet Tobiah, and were almost invariably loyal, honest, diligent, and uncannily capable of predicting the near future. And Uriel was no exception. Uriel was exceptional. Even though he was created after Tobiah's apocalypse, so lacked the spark of ingenuity that comes with having lived a first life, he more than made up for it by being the smartest cherub ever created. Relative to humans and seraphim, cherubim evolved to be quite short, about 4 feet on average, which led some of your artists to depict them as babies. As soon as that happened, Uriel switched out his traditional creamy vestments for a smartly tailored dark gray business suit with a dark gray tie. I tried to tell him a blue suit would better offset his fiery red hair and piercing blue eyes, but he didn't care in the slightest. Instead, his suit offset his porcelain skin, making him appear even paler behind his freckles and permanently rosy cheeks. The Devil, Archangel Nick of Penance and Faith, sat to Uriel's left, as far from Michael as possible. As always, Nick dressed like he didn't want to be taken seriously. He wore a black t-shirt and gray lounge pants, with his feet clad in slipper-like shoes and propped up on the conference table, while he leaned back in his chair with an infuriating smirk on his face. His t-shirt featured a graphic of your planet with a dialogue over it that asked, "Are you sure you want to delete Earth?" and a mouse icon hovering over cancel. His black hair was a mess. He had a permanent 5 o'clock shadow, and his black eyes shone with determination. Raphael smiled at us. "Thank you for meeting with me on this auspicious day. Now, we all have much to do, so I'll keep this brief. Good luck, everyone. Are there any questions or concerns before we begin? I got a concern, announced Nick, raising his hand unnecessarily. I don't think we should. You don't think we should what? Raphael asked. Start Earth's apocalypse today, Nick said. After a well-deserved stunned silence, he asked, Any thoughts on that? Raphael raised his eyebrows, but showed no other indication of his immense surprise. What are you talking about? Of course we're starting Earth's apocalypse today. It's been scheduled for ages. Can we at least discuss it? The devil asked. There's nothing to discuss, Nick, Michael said. The humans passed the apocalypse milestone. It's time. When Michael spoke, the tension in the room became palpable. It had nothing to do with his words, and everything to do with the fact that he spoke them directly to Nick, something he rarely did as of late. The two used to be best friends before Earth steered them into a bitter enmity that spanned millennia. Recently, about 1987 years earlier, they reached an unspoken agreement to avoid all unnecessary interactions, which made working together a bit strained. I decided to lighten the mood by saying, We have all the time in the world to talk. Raphael and Uriel laughed. Nick and Michael were too busy glaring at each other. Uriel cleared his throat for attention. A discussion wouldn't harm anything. We all looked at him with surprise. Uriel and Nick didn't usually agree. Uriel's cold rationale conflicted with Nick's fiery passion, and the pairing was not accidental. Raphael hired Uriel as our team's judiciary head to keep Nick from talking his way out of trouble, as he often did with our previous Archangel of Repentance. If three of us want to have a discussion, we should probably have one, Raphael decided. Fine, grumbled Michael, but then we need to involve the other archangels in the decision. It was a good idea to include more interested parties in such a potentially radical decision, but he probably suggested it because Earth's other two archangels usually agreed with whatever Michael agreed with. Archangel Zadkiel, Zad, of Admissions and Charity, wasn't at the meeting because she was overworked with admitting a flood of human souls into heaven. Archangel Jophiel, Jophi, of Humility, wasn't at the meeting due to an overabundance of apathy. She'd lost interest sometime long before Earth, but wanted to be a part of things, so she kept signing up only to loiter in the wings. Raphael nodded at me, and I added the other archangels to the required attendees. Okay, but not just them then, Nick added quickly. Who else? The devil pretended to think for a moment and suggested, the Four Horsemen? It was a good idea to include human representatives in the decision, and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse were excellent candidates, but he probably suggested it because it was reasonable to assume they'd want to postpone the destruction of Earth, especially since the Horseman of Death was a friend of his. Raphael motioned for me to add the Four Horsemen to the list of invitees, and I obliged. The Archdemons, Uriel suggested. Michael glared suspiciously at Nick, who headed the Archdemons. Nick put up his hands to communicate he hadn't influenced Uriel to say that. I looked at Uriel, futilely trying to work out his motives. He clearly suspected something too esoteric for the rest of us to grasp yet, and was working his own angle. They should probably be here, Raphael agreed. And anyone else who feels like it? Michael suggested sarcastically. You started this, Nick reminded him. I feel like Earth's Messiah ought to get a say. For a moment, I thought Michael was going to punch him in the face, but then the moment passed without incident. Absolutely not, Raphael answered firmly. He is far too biased. Nick shrugged. It was worth a shot. Any other suggestions? Raphael asked the room. After a reasonable pause, he continued, Very well. Gabriel, send word to the archangels and the horsemen. Nick, fetch the archdemons. Everyone else, use this time to further your preparations for the coming apocalypse in case we still have it. I'll reserve this void for the same time tomorrow. He glanced meaningfully at Nick when he added, I hope to see all of you then, regardless of today's outcomes. Coming from Raphael, it was a stern warning. Surprisingly, Nick didn't roll his eyes, make flippant comments, or any of his usual responses to that sort of statement. He just smiled and nodded. Michael and Uriel eyed him suspiciously. Raphael concluded, See you all soon.